And so now Aram and the northern kingdom of Israel are now marching against Jerusalem in the south, and Ahaz is thinking, maybe, just maybe, I need to get myself some help from outside. Maybe I should go talk to the Assyrians and get them to help me. And Isaiah the prophet has been sent by God to talk to Ahaz and to tell him, no, that's a bad idea. So now we pick it up in verse 10. In verse 10 it says, "Again the Lord spoke to Ahaz, ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or in the highest heights. But Ahaz said, I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test." So then Isaiah said, "Hear now, you house of David. Is it not enough to try the patience of men? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will be with child, and will give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. He will eat curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. But before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on the house of your father a time unlike any since Ephraim, the northern kingdom, broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria." There's a couple things there that end this prophecy that I don't have time to deal with today, but I just want to mention so that you understand it. The first half of the end of this prophecy is that before the boy is old enough to discern right from wrong, so that means probably before he is weaned, or maybe before he turns to the age of accountability, whatever it is, back in the ancient Jewish culture, that was about maybe 10 or 12, somewhere in that window. So before this boy reaches that age, the kingdom that this man Ahaz dreads will be eliminated. The northern kingdom and the Aramites will both be eliminated. The second half of the end of that prophecy is that, but Ahaz is now going to have to deal with the Assyrians. They're not going to be his allies. He's going to have to struggle against them. And so this is a prophecy that leads us to an idea of struggle and victory. An idea of salvation and judgment. God's judgment coming in the form of the Assyrians. God's salvation coming in the fact that the opposing nations are going to be eliminated. But the part that I want us to focus on today are the two parts that are relevant to Matthew's gospel. And here they are. Number one, Isaiah says, a virgin will bear a child. This is important because the word used in the Hebrew to say the word virgin is a word that can be translated either virgin, in a sexual sense, or young woman. In either case, what it really means is that it means that a woman who has not yet been betrothed or married to a man. And in that culture, that person, that woman, was assumed to be virginal. And so that word carried both meanings. It was like a young woman, but it also carried this sort of subtext meaning of a virgin. And so throughout the Old Testament, it is almost always used in that context to refer to someone who is actually biologically, physically, sexually a virgin. But nowhere in this verse does it require us to say that this woman who is a virgin will be a virgin all the way through her pregnancy to the day she delivers. Instead, what it means is, all it means is that at the moment of her conception, she was a virgin. So it could happen in the normal biological way, just, like two people getting married and they end up conceiving a child. But before the conception, she had to be a virgin. That's what this prophecy includes. And then it goes on in the second half of this prophecy is they will call him God with us. That word Emmanuel in Hebrew is literally God with us. So go ahead and write that down. The two halves of this prophecy are that the virgin will bear a child and they will call him God with us. There's another one that I had on the PowerPoint slide that isn't any longer on your note sheet, so I'm just going to skip it. But here's the deal. If that's where the prophecy comes, I want you to see what shows up in Isaiah 8. Look at this. Isaiah 8, beginning in verse 1. The Lord says to me, take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen, Maher-shalal-Hashbaz. Incidentally, that's the longest name in the Bible. Add that to your trivia. Okay, Maher-shalal-Hash-baz. And I will call in Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Jeberechiah as reliable witnesses for me. Then I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. And the Lord said to me, name him Maher-shalal-Hash-baz. Before the boy knows how to say my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. Now, you have to understand what's going on here. The prophetess is Isaiah's own wife. And she was apparently a prophet as well as Isaiah was, and we don't know a whole lot about her. But what we know here is that Isaiah conceives a child with her, and they name this child Maher-shalal-Hash-baz, which means, you can see in the footnotes of your NIV text, it means quick to the plunder, swift to the spoil, and it shows up twice here. She conceived, they gave birth to this child's name, and then it says, before the boy knows how to say my mother or my father, the northern kingdom and the kingdom of Aram will be destroyed. It seems very parallel to what we just read in chapter 7. And if we go all the way to verse 9, we see the rest of this. It says, raise the war cry, you nations, and be shattered. Listen, all you distant lands, prepare for battle and be shattered. Prepare for battle and be shattered. Devise your strategy, but it will be thwarted. Propose your plan, but it will not stand, for God is with us. Do you have any idea what the Hebrew is behind the words, God is with us? It's the word Emmanuel. And so here in chapter 8, we hear the story of a young boy who will be born with a symbolic name, and before he's old enough to know right from wrong or even say dad or mom, then the nation to the north and the nation to the east will be destroyed, and the people will refer to that time as the time when Emmanuel, the time when God is with us. In other words, what we're seeing here is that chapter 8 fulfills all the requirements of chapter 7. So, wait a minute. Isaiah prophesied something in chapter 7, and in chapter 8, it appears that it's fulfilled. So where does Matthew get this idea that it's fulfilled in his day? In order to do that, I want you to notice that Isaiah's prophecy is only partially fulfilled. You see, this wasn't a real virgin, it was just kind of a virgin. She was a virgin when she conceived. And this wasn't a total victory, and it wasn't really God with us. It's just that people said, God is with us. We can tell God is with us. And so when we get to the time, 700 years later, of Joseph, and an angel tells him that there is a virgin who actually is carrying a child while still a virgin, never been with a man. Joseph knows he's never been with Mary, and he hopes no one else has ever been with her. And here this angel says she's never been with a man and she's carrying a child. Wait a minute. If that's the case, then that means Mary is a real, full, total virgin, as opposed